Have you ever wrestled with a problem that just simply has no solution?
Oh, yeah.
Constantly. Right. And I'm not talking about like a tricky puzzle where you just temporarily misplaced a piece. I mean a massive, fundamental, deeply frustrating problem, like in your work or your relationships or, I don't know, just your daily life.
Yeah, the kind where every single angle you look at it from just loops back into another contradiction.
Exactly. You try to force a fix and the whole thing just splinters in your hands.
It's an incredibly isolating feeling, honestly, because, we are neurologically wired to want resolution.
We really are.
When we hit a wall where logic breaks down, our brains just perceive it as an error.
Yeah.
We desperately want to close the loop so we can, move on.
But what if the entire point isn't to close the loop? What if the goal is actually learning how to, well, live inside it?
Now, that is a huge shift in perspective.
It is, and that is our mission for today's deep dive.
Yeah.
We are unpacking a massive, just wild stack of sources surrounding this multimedia literary project. It's called the Kronecker Codex.
And the materials we're looking at here, they are not your standard novel.
Not at all.
We've got this highly rigid 7-stage writing manual called the Architect's Method. We've got hidden digital letters just tucked into obscure corners of the web.
Yeah.
And we have this deeply haunting piece of audio called the Zaya Melody.
It's quite the collection.
It's super ambitious. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the overarching goal of the Kronecker Codex is to explore the intersection of advanced mathematics and messy human experience.
Yeah, using 22 interconnected stories.
Right, which act as a kind of literary proof for 4 generations of a single family, the Kroneckers.
And all of these mathematical metaphors, they point to one core theme, right? That some truths remain beautifully, necessarily unsolved.
Exactly. They just aren't meant to be fixed.
Which, I mean, that sounds incredibly poetic, but how do you actually map that out?
Well, you start with history. The authors rooted this entire fictional universe in the very real history of this mathematician, David Hilbert. Back in the year 1900, Hilbert stood before the International Congress of Mathematicians in Paris, and he posed 23 massive mathematical problems.
Like the ultimate riddles.
Precisely. They literally shaped scientific inquiry for the entire 20th century.
Ah.
And over the decades, some were solved.
But not all of them.
No. Others were mathematically proven to be fundamentally unsolvable.
Unsolvable by definition. Like there just isn't an answer waiting to be found.
Right.
And actually, that brings us to, I think, the perfect sensory entry point for this whole experience. The Zeta Melody.
Oh, yeah. That audio piece.
Yeah, if you go to the project's website, there is this audio track playing in the background. It is literally mathematics transformed into sound. Specifically, it's built on the Riemann zeta function.
Which is tied to one of the most famous unsolved problems in mathematics regarding the distribution of prime numbers.
Right, because primes seem random.
They do. But the Riemann zeta function attempts to map a hidden underlying structure to them. The zeros of this function, the points where the equation literally equals 0, they create this highly complex, infinite sequence.
And the melody is an auditory map of that exact sequence.
That's right,
But, and okay, let's unpack this, because the sequence goes on forever without repeating a simple pattern. The music loops endlessly. It never reaches a final resolving note.
It never lands.
Right. And I have to push back here a little bit. You say this is supposed to be profound, but if I'm listening to a song and the final chord never hits, I'm not finding deep meaning. I am just annoyed.
It drives you crazy, right?
Totally. Normally, an unresolved chord progression feels like, I don't know, walking down a staircase in the dark and expecting one more step that just isn't there.
Yep, your brain panics.
Because a pattern was broken. So how do you build an entire family legacy on that feeling of perpetual suspense without just driving the reader insane?
What's fascinating here is how the authors reframe that exact feeling. In the philosophy of the Codex, incompleteness isn't a failure, it's a feature.
A feature.
Yeah. The panic you feel when that final step isn't there, that is just your conditioning. The space where the harmony refuses to resolve, that tension, is exactly where the actual meaning lives.
Oh, wow.
The melody acts as a psychological training tool. It literally forces you to stop waiting for the end.
Because if you're always waiting for the final chord, you aren't actually listening to the song that's playing right now.
Precisely. Once you accept that the resolution just isn't coming, you can finally start hearing the beauty of the suspension itself.
You stop waiting for the answer and you start living in the question.
Exactly.
And that philosophy, that is the absolute lifeblood of the Kronecker family tree. I mean, this is a fictional legacy spanning 150 years, 4 generations.
And the narrative anchor passing through all these hands is this physical object, a fictionalized brass compass, allegedly given to the family patriarch Leopold Kronecker by David Hilbert himself in 1897.
And the engraving on the back of this compass, it establishes the rules of engagement for the whole family.
It reads, "For finding direction when the path cannot be proved to exist."
And crucially, this compass does not point north.
No, it doesn't.
It spins, and it settles on directions that correspond to mathematical and emotional truths, rather than, geographical locations. It guides the family through unmappable territories.
Yeah, and let's look at how that actually plays out for these characters. Because the authors use these 22 stories to bring these massive abstract concepts violently down to earth.
The character of Vera is a perfect example of this.
Oh, her story is incredible.
Vera grew up in this strict, isolated doomsday cult in Montana, and in her world, everything is just a brutal binary. Like, you are either saved or you are damned.
Right, you're pure or you're corrupted.
A 1 or a 0.
It's a completely rigid framework that leaves no room for human error.
None. So she manages to escape to a deprogramming center, but she is mentally agonizing over this daily question of, am I saved or am I damned?
She's still trapped in that binary thinking.
Completely trapped. But then she inherits her great-grandfather's mathematical notebooks. And she discovers the continuum hypothesis. She learns about Georg Cantor's mathematics of infinity.
Specifically, that there are different sizes of infinity.
Wait, different sizes?
Yeah. To put that simply, there's the infinity of whole numbers 1, 2, 3, forever.
Okay.
But then there's the uncountable infinity of decimal points just existing between the numbers 1 and 2, like 1.1, 1.11, 1.111. That tiny gap contains an infinite universe of fractions.
And Vera realizes she isn't a 0 and she isn't a 1. She is the infinite space in between.
Yes.
That is just such a brilliant way to break occult mentality. But honestly, how often do you and I do that to ourselves?
Oh, all the time.
We think, if I don't get this promotion, my career is a failure. Or if this relationship ends, I am unlovable. We apply this brutal 1 or 0 binary math to our own lives,
completely ignoring the infinite spectrum of reality in between. Vera finds her identity in that unmappable space.
Yeah. And then the book shifts to Michael, who's a sculptor living in Santa Fe. His story approaches the unmappable territory of grief.
Right. His teenage son, Joaquin, dies suddenly in a car accident.
And Michael is trying to preserve his son's memory, but the thought of just looking at a flat photograph feels entirely inadequate to him.
So instead, he turns to the mathematics of quadratic forms to literally carve the acoustic resonance of his dead son's voice into limestone.
Okay, wait, let me make sure I understand the mechanics of this. How does a voice become a physical shape in stone?
Well, sound isn't just magic, right? It is physical energy moving through space.
Okay.
Every human voice creates a specific mathematical signature based on pitch, timbre, and frequency. A sudden laugh generates physical sound waves that plot out as parabolic curves in the air.
Oh, wow.
A sustained singing note generates complex elliptical forms.
So Michael calculates the exact mathematical curves of Joaquin's voice, and then he carves the inverse of those geometry patterns into the architecture of a limestone room.
Yes. He creates a physical space where those specific frequencies are perfectly mathematically supported.
That's amazing.
He realizes that memory isn't just a fading image in your head. It has measurable physical properties. It's a quadratic form that can be expressed in infinitely many equivalent ways.
So he can't resurrect his son, obviously, but he can build the mathematical conditions where the shape of his voice permanently exists.
Exactly.
It's breathtaking. And then you have Carlos, an immigration lawyer in El Paso. He's dealing with a much more bureaucratic, systemic, kind of impossible problem.
Right. His mother leaves him a dying riddle. What is the true name of our family when all the documents lie?
So he spends years just digging through birth certificates, ship manifests, border documents.
And he hits a massive wall because the documents systematically contradict each other. A vowel change to Ellis Island, a missing date of birth in Mexico, a forged stamp in Texas.
So how does the compass guide him through that mess?
By helping him recognize that he's actually looking at a Diophantine equation. A Diophantine equation. In mathematics, that's a polynomial equation that strictly demands integer solutions.
Meaning whole numbers.
Exactly. Whole numbers only.
Okay, but how does a birth certificate act like an equation?
Think of border law as a rigid equation that requires a whole number. You are either legally a citizen of 1, or you are an alien of 0. The system demands that integer.
Okay, I'm with you.
But Carlos realizes the historical math of his family only produces messy fractions.
Yeah.
Because of all the lost records and the contradictory borders, the whole number solution simply doesn't exist.
Wow.
The equation of his family's identity is fundamentally mathematically undecidable.
That reframes his entire reality. The system isn't broken because of a missing piece of paper. The system is demanding a mathematical impossibility.
Exactly. And individually, these are just stories of people wrestling with cults, grief, and bureaucracy. But when you interlock all 22 of these narratives, the authors claim they form a literary proof.
Okay, and to understand this, we have to look at the Banach-Tarski paradox.
Yes.
Oh, this was the part of the sources that just completely broke my brain. Walk me through this.
Okay, so in geometry, the Banach-Tarski paradox mathematically proves that you can take a solid 3D sphere, cut it into a finite number of jagged complex pieces,
Okay.
and then reassemble those exact same pieces into two identical spheres of the exact same size as the original.
Hold on, stop. If I have a solid object, like say an orange, and I slice it into 5 pieces,
Right.
there is no physical way I can arrange those 5 pieces to build 2 full-size oranges. That violates the basic laws of physics and the conservation of mass.
It absolutely violates our physical intuition of volume, yes. But mathematically, when you're dealing with the infinite nature of points within a sphere, it is proven true. You can take one volume, shatter it, and reassemble it to take up twice as much space without adding anything new.
That is wild, and the authors use this as the ultimate framework for the Kronecker family.
Yes, the family is the human equivalent of the Banach-Tarski paradox.
Okay, so when Michael experiences the profound trauma of losing his son, his life is shattered into pieces.
Right.
But when he eventually reassembles himself through his art, he isn't diminished. He hasn't lost volume.
Exactly. The trauma, the love, the memory, it somehow multiplies. He takes up more emotional volume than he did before. The family proves that human existence, our capacity to love, to grieve, to adapt, it just defies clean categorization and conventional logic.
And we've been talking about how this family learns to live in the messy, unstructured, unresolvable spaces of life. And here's where it gets really interesting. Paradoxically, to write a 150-year epic about structureless chaos, the authors had to use the most rigid, mathematically precise writing system ever invented.
The creation of the book itself is just a massive contradiction.
It really is.
It's a structural nightmare, because if you just let themes of infinity and undecidable grief wander aimlessly, the book would have been an incoherent mess. It would have collapsed under its own weight.
Which explains the incredible dynamic between the two authors. The chaotic, deeply emotional, poetic prose was written by Eris Mirrane.
Right.
But the structural blueprint, the load-bearing framework that holds all that emotion up, that was provided by her co-author, Luigi Pascal Rondanini. And reading through our sources, Rondanini did not mess around.
No, he did not.
He used a highly rigid, unyielding system called the architect's method.
It's this intense 7-stage system designed specifically to prevent what he refers to as the discovery writing trap, or hitting the 30,000-word wall.
Yeah, Rondanini points out that most writers start a novel with a burst of pure enthusiasm. They write by the seat of their pants until they hit about 30,000 words, and then the plot just tangles.
They get completely lost in the weeds.
They either abandon the project entirely or spend 12 to 18 months wandering around in endless revisions that never actually produce a cohesive book.
Because they're trying to design the architecture of the house while they were already pouring concrete for the walls.
Exactly.
The core mandate of the architect's method is that structure must entirely precede execution. You spend months planning intensely, and only when the math of the story is flawless do you begin to write prose.
And the manual for this method is intense. Like, in stage 1, the complete vision, you are strictly forbidden from writing a single line of dialogue or prose until you have mapped out 3 distinct architectures.
Right, you need the plot architecture, sure, but you also need the character architecture and the emotional architecture.
You literally have to mathematically map what feelings the reader will experience in Chapter 4, how that corresponds to the protagonist's internal shift and the specific external lever that forces that shift.
And if those 3 timelines don't synchronize perfectly, you fail stage 1.
Brutal. And if you manage to survive that, you eventually get to stage 6, skeleton construction.
Which is where you literally build a blueprint for every single scene in the book. You document the point of view, the setting, who is present, what events happen, how the power dynamic shifts by the end of the scene.
And the exact emotional beat it ends on.
Exactly. Everything operates on strict cause and effect. Scene A must cause scene B. Nothing is random.
But, I mean, doesn't this raise a massive red flag for you? A hyper-systematic approach like that, it seems like it would completely squeeze the life out of the art. It sounds like an assembly line.
That's exactly what I assumed when I first read about it.
Right.
But when you actually read the Kronecker Codex, it is dripping with spontaneity and messy human emotion. It doesn't read like a textbook at all.
It's like building the most rigid, mathematically sound steel scaffolding you can possibly imagine just so you have a totally safe, unbreakable space to paint a wild, unpredictable, abstract mural.
Yes, that friction is the secret ingredient. The tension between Rondanini's rigid, load-bearing framework and Mirrane's unsolvable, chaotic subject matter is what elevates the book to a masterpiece.
Because the system demands total resolution, but it's housing 22 stories about the beauty of things that never resolve.
The authors literally lived the paradox of their own book.
They did. And it brings us back to the Kroneckers themselves, spending generations carrying this compass, trying to navigate these impossible spaces. It's a beautiful inheritance, but it is also a tremendous burden.
It's exhausting. I mean, whether it's the pressure to find meaning in an endless melody or mapping the geometry of grief, this constant search for truth in unmappable territories takes a heavy toll on the characters.
Which really begs the question, why does this matter to you? If you are listening to this right now, driving in your car or making dinner, what do you do with this?
Good question.
I think it comes down to how we approach the impossible problems in our own lives. When you're dealing with a complex relationship that just won't smooth out, or a career trajectory that has no clear next step, or a personal loss that leaves a jagged hole in your reality.
Our instinct is to treat it like a broken bone.
Yes. We want the X-ray to show us the clean break so we can apply an algorithm, put a cast on it, and heal.
But the Kronecker Codex offers a totally different paradigm. It reminds us that not every problem is a math equation waiting for an integer.
Some problems are just meant to be lived. That zeta melody looping in the background, it isn't broken just because it doesn't end. It's asking you to stop waiting for the final chord and to start listening to the space where the tension actually lives.
And yet, there is one final detail hidden in the sources that completely upends everything we've just discussed.
A final wrinkle in this family legacy.
Yes. Out of the entire Kronecker family tree, surrounded by 22 stories of brilliant people wrestling with this compass and carrying these beautiful, impossible burdens, there is a 23rd perspective.
The 23rd point on the compass.
Her name is Nadia Okonkwo Kronecker. Her story is titled The Uninherited, and she enters the narrative through the south point of the compass.
Okay.
She is the one single family member who looked at the towering legacy of mathematics, the endless searching, the heavy beauty of incompleteness, and she said no.
She inherited the compass, and she simply gave it back.
She refused to carry the weight of it.
Yeah.
Which leaves us with an incredibly provocative thought to mull over. In a family entirely defined by the obsessive pursuit of impossible answers, in a world that constantly demands we wrestle with the unresolvable, might the ultimate mathematical act be the choice to simply walk away and refuse the inheritance entirely?
Wow. We started this deep dive talking about that problem in your life that just has no solution, the one you keep turning over and over in your head, trying to force the pieces together. Maybe the answer isn't to find the perfect formula. Maybe the answer isn't even to learn how to live beautifully inside the mystery. Maybe, just maybe, you can just put the compass down.